So I always profess that I don't take California weather for granted. I'm not from here and it's always so beautiful. But I got off the plane from a much colder climate a couple of days ago. And I realized as I just basked in this beautiful air that I had, in fact, probably grown complacent in my gratitude. But in our human psychology is the function of adaptation. So for better or worse, we get used to things. We get used to good things and we get used to not so good things. This is a functionally adaptive mechanism, right? I think though, like trust fund babies that take things for granted, like the riches that their grandparents and parents traded mightily for, America seems to have stopped paying much attention anyway, to the teaching and valuing of the unprecedented freedoms we enjoy. Can a nation survive without some common underlying values? And in our case, the honoring of the values of liberty and individual freedom, upon which are based our rights to, among other things, freedom of speech and assembly, which we consider inalienable, not gifted from those in government. Sometimes it takes the perspective of one not immersed in a situation to see clearly its value. In this case, we have someone originally from another country to fight for civic education for our children, to preserve freedom for generations to come. Nick Adams, most of you know, founded the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness. His passion for liberty, and I can assure you his self-discipline, led him to, among other things, to be a presidential appointee, a successful author, and a good friend to the Liberty Forum. Immigrating from halfway around the world to do the job Americans won't do. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Nick Adams, first on video and then in person.
I'm an ordinary person living in the most extraordinary country of them all. My name is Nick Adams and this is my story. I was born in Sydney, Australia in September 1984. I'm no stranger to adversity. Most people wait a long time for a life-changing moment, but I didn't have to. At the age of 16 months, I was diagnosed with almost a death sentence, stage 4 neuroblastoma. My parents received the news, the worst news any parents could receive. For 3 years, I locked horns with the most fierce adversary imaginable. And with the power of prayer, skilled doctors, and loving parents, I overcame it all. There is a picture that I have mounted and framed. It's very special to me. It's a photo that was taken on the afternoon of my operation, and it shows me already up and about with my mother in the background looking on. I've captioned it, a celebration of life, because that's how I approach my life. From the very start, my parents made it clear to me what exactly I'd beaten, the magnitude of it. And they told me to take every chance and jump at every opportunity to live the spirit of freedom. My parents sent me to one of the best schools, an all-boys private school. It's there where there was lots of discipline, lots of opportunities, and where I really started to form my future. At the age of 19, I ran for local council and against all odds was elected, becoming one of the youngest ever elected councilmen. The first election I ever voted in, I voted for myself. The next year, I was elected the youngest deputy mayor in Australian history, a record which I believe still stands to this day. But it's not all as rosy as it sounds. Finding success in this hyper-partisan age alienated other opportunities. Being an elected official harmed my job prospects. It meant I didn't have the same opportunities that a normal graduate would. Couldn't get internships, couldn't find work. It started to dawn on me that Australia might not be the place for me. I believe in freedom. I believe in opportunity. I believe in chasing dreams. I believe in living life to the fullest. And there's only one country where you can do that. All of my life I was drawn to and inspired by the United States of America. And it's because my personality was very American. I was bold, individualistic. I was tired of others writing the script of my life. I wanted to be the shaper of my destiny. I wanted to be in the driver's seat of my life. And that's why I came to the United States of America. It's the only country in the world where that's possible. But I had a problem. I didn't know anyone. I had no connections. So I set about trying to line up a speaking tour of the United States. My pitch was simple. I'm Nick Adams, I'm 24 years old, I love America, I've got a great life story, and I'd like to be your speaker. And in a story possible only in America, and in a testament to the openness of the American society, lots of people said, yes, we'd love to have you. A few speeches became lots of speeches, and soon before I knew it, I became a, well, very long distance commuter. Pretty quickly, I ended up getting the attention of Fox News, got a book deal, but more than that, I was fighting for the values of freedom and liberty, and that's when life started to make sense. Immigrating to the United States is a very difficult thing. In fact, it's probably the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do. And my life was turned upside down in the process. But if I had my time again and I had to do it all again, I would, because I wake up every single day and thank God that I'm here. Finally, on the 29th of July 2016, I immigrated to the United States of America. I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to spearhead a movement. I wanted to blaze a trail. I wanted to do something for America. The greatest threat I found facing the United States of America was our failure to pass on what it means to be an American, to teach Americanism to our kids. I found that the conservative movement was fixated on college campuses, but I felt that the damage was done far earlier. That's why I started FLAG, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, an educational group focused on K-12 education. I wanted children to know that the day that they were born here, or the day that they moved here permanently, is the day that they won the lottery of life, that they got this incredible head start on anyone and everyone everywhere else. FLAG is as inspirational and aspirational as it is educational. Like many great American businesses, FLAG started in a garage. Fast forward to today, and we have directly reached more than 750,000 school children in all 50 states. We're reaching over 35 million people on social media a month. We're $1 million organisation, but most importantly, we are winning back the future and transforming a generation. The American people have embraced me as though I was born here. 7 different states now have given me honorary status, the highest award possible. Some of the highlights of my time in the United States: being a special guest at the State of the Union in 2019, a 3-hour documentary on my life by C-SPAN, having my book occupy the entire front window of the Barnes & Noble on 5th Avenue in Manhattan, being interviewed on television and sharing the screen with Tony Robbins, and of course, most recently, receiving a presidential appointment from the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. For the President of the United States to know who this immigrant is pretty special. To be called the President's favourite author, well, I don't really know what to say. It's quite surreal. I'm deeply honoured. I think we're up now to about 10 tweets about 3 different books over the course of 3 years. But I'll always remember that first tweet the most, the 3rd of March 2017, when President Trump saw me on Fox and Friends and took to Twitter to declare my book, Green Card Warrior, a must-read. In all of my interactions with the President, I've found him patriotic, caring, loyal. I'm going to continue to serve America in any capacity that I can, as a presidential appointee in Washington, as the founder of FLAG, as a patriot that cares so deeply about this country. In the sweep of history, men from Paine to Schertz to Einstein have come to America to help her in her time of need. I have always tried to follow that noble tradition. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. What an honour, pleasure and privilege it is to be able to be here with each and every single one of you. I want to extend my most profound gratitude to Jane for her gracious invitation, wonderful hospitality, having me here tonight. It was about 13 or 14 months ago that I was looking at the calendar for 2021, and I'd realized that I'd spoken here in December of 2019 to this very group, and I wanted to make sure that I could get on the calendar for 2021. So here we are. This is actually the third time that I have had the enormous privilege of speaking to this group. The first time was in December of 2016, a mere 4 or 5 months after I had immigrated to the United States of America. And in fact, the backstory, as many of those of you that are here that will remember, I was scheduled to speak earlier in 2016, and then all of a sudden I was put on a no-fly list and I couldn't travel. And that was courtesy of the Obama administration and John Kerry's State Department, and we frantically worked together to try and get things rescheduled. And ultimately, my first appearance here was 5 years ago to this very month. What a 5 years it has been for me personally and for the country. And what an incredible honor it is to speak on such an incredible and important and significant day, the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. A moment in time which makes everyone think about what was happening and what could have happened. As somebody that was born in Australia, raised there, lived there the first 32 years of my life, I know that there were Japanese submarines in Sydney Harbour. I know that the Japanese had already printed currency to be used in Australia after they would have successfully taken the country over. And it is only because of the brave men and women of the United States military that I'm not speaking Japanese and I only have sushi occasionally. So that's something that is very important for all of us to remember. What an honor, pleasure, and privilege it is to be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. In the world's exceptional nation, in civilization's indispensable country. What is it that I believe in? I believe in God, personal responsibility, the sanctity of human life, limited government, a strong national defense, the right to bear arms, the state of Israel. Up there with all of those things, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the United States of America. And if there is one take-home message that I have for you tonight, if there's one thing that I want you to recall when you go home later this evening and rest your head on your pillow, it is this. Despite the undeniable, indisputable, and incontrovertible problems, challenges, threats, and realities currently afflicting the United States of America, this is still easily, by far and away, hands down, head and shoulders, the greatest country in the history of the world. Every single time I speak to an elementary school, middle school, public high school, or college audience, I look those students in the eyes and I tell them that the day that they were born in the United States of America, or the day that they moved permanently to the United States of America, is the day that they won the lottery of life. And they got the most incredible, the most amazing, the most remarkable, the most sensational head start on anyone and everyone everywhere else. This is the best country in the world to be born in, to live in, to work in, to start a business in, to grow a business in, to realize a dream. This is the only country in the world where you can color outside of the lines and not be punished. This is the only country in the world
where success is not yet resented, but still admired and aspired to. This is the only country in the world where you can blaze a trail and leave a legacy. This is the only country in the world where most people still tend to strive for greatness and not mediocrity. This is the only country in the world where your first language or your last name means absolutely nothing. And this is the only country in the world where failure is not fatal, where you can fall down 5,000 times, but if you've got grit, determination, and hustle, you can get up 5,001. Thomas Edison had 1,000 cracks at the light bulb. Colonel Sanders had his recipe for fried chicken rejected 1,009 times before he got a taker. Abraham Lincoln lost his first 6 elections. P.T. Barnum's first 2 circuses were abject failures. Yet he went on to become the greatest showman. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice, almost 3 times. Same story with Henry Ford. Again and again and again, the lesson, the theme throughout American history has been that those with passion, those with perseverance, those with persistence end up leaving a legacy well beyond their time on this earth. You see, America is special because America is the only country that is not just a country, not merely a stretch of land, not simply a geographic entity. America is an idea. It is an ideal, a notion, an improbable and daring experiment that actually remains equally as improbable and daring today. It's the hope that banishes all hopelessness. It's the shot that was heard around the world and still is. There are 4 ways that a nation is said to be exceptional: culturally, militarily, economically, and scientifically. And on each of those 4 measurements, in almost 5,000 years of recorded human history, you want to hear the kicker? Here's the kicker. With less than 5% of the world's population, with less than 5% of the world's population, America has dominated those 4 spheres to an extent previously considered impossible. But none of that success, none of that power, none of that might, none of that wealth, none of that influence just happened. None of it was accidental. None of it was incidental. No. To the contrary, all of it was extraordinarily deliberate, extremely intentional. You see, the most brilliant men to have ever walked this earth were our founders, who understood that the way to unlocking human ingenuity, the way to unleashing human creativity, the way to driving human accomplishment was to make sure that men and women were as unencumbered as possible by the need for government approvals and red tape. It's for precisely the same reason that the United States of America has ascended to the position of guardian of liberty, as the custodian of civilization. I want you to contemplate for just a moment what the world might look like without the United States of America. North Korea would invade South Korea. Taiwan would be overrun by China. War, maybe nuclear, would break out in the Middle East. Islamic terrorists would act with complete impunity. Tyrants in North Africa would run around even more mercilessly than what they already do. Cataclysmic natural disasters would have no concerted, coordinated response effort. Individual liberty would gradually diminish and ultimately become extinct. That's what a world without the United States of America looks like. And that's why it's in the interest of everyone, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you do, which one of the new 57 different genders you choose to identify with, what bathroom you elect to use, how many vaccine shots you've had, even if you have never so much as even set your little toe on American soil. It's in your interests that America be as robust, as self-confident, as healthy, and as self-assertive as possible. Why? Because the equation is very simple. What is good for America is good for the world. When America is strong, the world is strong. When America is weak, the world is a weak and dangerous place. Now, that's not my hypothesis that I've scribbled on the back of a cocktail napkin after a few too many drinks at the event center in Santa Clara. We were living that reality. We are living that reality right now as we have elected officials at the highest levels of the federal government that are insistent on ensuring that America retreats in the world, that we have vacated our traditional role of leading from the front and instead are deliberately choosing to lead from behind. The result, the world right now is an infinitely dangerous place. Consider just the headlines over the last 2 or 3 days. Saudi Arabia, China, all around the world, there are things that are going on. Domestically, well, the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that political correctness is simply killing the United States of America. You see, here's the thing. Most people think that political correctness is simply an imposition on speech, just something that tells us what we can say and what we can't say. Well, that would be egregious enough with our proud tradition of the First Amendment. But I'm here to tell you, with regret rich in my voice, that political correctness is way more than that, infinitely more than that. Political correctness is a mindset. It's a mentality. It's an attitude that says that you should strive for mediocrity and not greatness, that you shouldn't color outside the lines lest you be punished, that you should resent those that have differentiated themselves professionally, financially, or in some other fashion more so than you. In fact, political correctness mandates that success and achievement be a measurement of how much butt you kiss as opposed to how much butt you kick. What could be more un-American, anti-American than that? Political correctness is a joking conformity, an intellectual tyranny, a totalitarian ideology that strips us of our individualism, eliminates our patriotism, removes our self-confidence, and in doing so, political correctness is transforming the American dream into the European and Australian nightmare. And why on earth would we want to follow the trajectories of those countries? Now, with demography in decline, Islam in the ascendancy, where churches are being routinely transformed into nightclubs, those cultures, those societies, those polities, those countries have become moribund and pedestrian and grey and vanilla and dull. There's no passion, there's no innovation, there are no inventions. That's not the future that we want for the United States of America. That's not the future that we want for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and our great-great-great-great-grandchildren. And that's certainly not the future that our founders had envisioned for us. You see, America is complex, but American exceptionalism is really, really simple. It's individualism, not collectivism. Patriotism, not relativism. God, not government. Faith, not secularism. It's equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. It's e pluribus unum, not radical multiculturalism. These are the virtues and values that have differentiated the United States of America from every other society on this earth in almost 5,000 years. But proponents and advocates of political correctness would seek to eliminate every single one of those points of differentiation, rendering America just another country, just another place. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very personal to me. I chose to come to the United States of America. I came to make, not take, to give, not receive, to join the place, not complain about it or change it. I came because I knew that this was the greatest country. I came because I knew that this was the place that would afford me the most freedom and the most opportunity to achieve the dreams that God put in my heart. But I also came here in no small, insignificant, or insubstantial way to make sure that the United States of America does not turn out like the country I felt I had to leave. Most Americans until recently thought that people in Australia boxed kangaroos by day and wrestled crocodiles by night. But if you've watched the news recently, you will know that the international perception is vastly different to the domestic reality. And the truth is that everything that has unfolded over the last 6 to 8 months in Australia, none of it is even remotely surprising to me. Any of you that have maybe traveled down to Australia will know that if you go to Australia and you take in the wrong kind of fruit or the wrong kind of nut, you may as well bring in a kilo of cocaine because you're going to get the same kind of treatment. So it's a combination of the island nation mentality, a draconianism that probably comes from the fact that it's a penal colony originally coming from Britain, and obviously that European influence as well. So I'm here to tell you that America truly does stand alone in values, culture, and in setup. And that is why I am on a mission to make sure that every single American, from north to south, east to west, and everywhere in between, knows how lucky and how fortunate and how blessed they are to call America home. But particularly our young, especially those that will be bequeathed with the most awesome responsibility conceivable, keeping the grand American experiment alive. I want them to know how lucky and how fortunate and how blessed they are to call America home. I don't want our children just being lukewarm on America. I want them to be red, piping, burning hot for America. I want every child in this nation to have a heart beating for the country. That's why I set up an organization called FLAG, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness, one of the fastest growing nonprofits in America today. FLAG is about 3 very simple things. Number 1, teaching civics. Number 2, putting patriotism back in public schools. And number 3, we do it 3 ways. Number 1, through classroom visits. Number 2, through the creation and distribution of kid-friendly resources relating to the founding documents. And number 3, through professional development training for teachers, where we teach teachers how to teach civics the way that it was taught to all of you. In 2017, FLAG teamed up with interns from the late Justice Antonin Scalia's office, and we got the United States Constitution into plain, simple, easy to understand English that even a 5th grader can comprehend. We launched it live on Fox News with a special 3-hour event on the Fox News Plaza. This resource has been a rocket ship for us. On the heels of the stunning success of the Students' Constitution, we released the Students' Declaration of Independence, students selected readings of the Federalist Papers, and the Student's Guide to the Electoral College. I am beyond delighted to share with you that as of April this year, FLAG passed a very significant milestone, one which we celebrated at our gala event in Key Biscayne, Florida, with our keynote speaker, Dennis Quaid. FLAG now has more than 1 million public school students with at least one of those 4 resources in all 50 states. In September, FLAG released our parent and grandparents guide to teaching those resources, to bypassing the schools. This is a must for any concerned parent or grandparent. And of course, it will not surprise any of you in the slightest that given the scourge that is CRT, the Marxist poison, currently infecting all of our schools, it will not surprise you to learn that FLAG is leading from the front. We have come up with a guide on how to diagnose CRT, identify CRT, what to do if your child or grandchild comes home and says that they suspect CRT is being taught. This little booklet right now is being distributed by the tens of thousands all across America in concerned communities. We also have an online petition that has been signed by more than 1 million Americans to fight back against critical race theory. For those of you that don't already follow me or follow FLAG on any of the social media, and I understand a few of you in here might have been booted off a couple of platforms, nevertheless, you'll find us everywhere. So obviously your usual suspects, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Getter, Parler, all that other stuff. So Nick Adams and FLAG, make sure that you go and follow those pages if you are not already doing so. FLAG has also got our FLAG Schools Pledge, where we get schools to commit to doing 3 very simple things. Number 1, display an American flag in every classroom. Number 2, recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day. And number 3, sing the national anthem before all major sporting events. And as of last Friday afternoon, we now have 8,859 schools signed up to that commitment nationwide. FLAG has also declared war on this idea that every student has got to go to college. I went to college. I got 2 degrees. You can ask my mother. I had a really good time. But the reality is that not everybody is made for college. And we need plumbers and electricians and machinists and carpenters and welders and lumber entrepreneurs. There are lots of good reasons that we do not want our children going to college unless they are tailor-made for it. Number 1, we want them to avoid the almost inevitable liberal indoctrination that awaits them on any college campus. Number 2, we don't want them graduating up to their eyeballs, saddled in debt. Number 3, we want to virtually guarantee them a job. And number 4, and most sexy of all, we want to give the maximum amount of young Americans the chance to one day go and do the most American thing of all, start their own business, create wealth, employ people, achieve the American dream. Ladies and gentlemen, in July, the United States of America celebrated her 245th birthday, a time of great celebration. But I would also submit a time for sober and somber contemplation. Because if you go and ask any historian worth their salt how long great nations tend to last, they'll tell you somewhere between 230 and 270 years. And that, my friends, puts America right in the kill zone. To make matters worse, for the first time, the enemies of the United States are no longer only foreign, they're also domestic. There are people within America rooting for America's failure. So the fight, the battle, the war, the struggle that we're going to have to embark on is going to be worse than any that we've been through before. It's going to require us to summon every ounce of patriotism from the soles of our feet to the tops of our heads. But as a lifelong student of American history, I remain unswervingly convinced that our best days still lie ahead. From the early defeats by Britain in the War of Independence, to the loss of the Philippines, to Pearl Harbor, to the days following September 11, every single time America has been under attack, every single time America and freedom have been shoved up against a corner wall in a room, America has emerged bigger and stronger and better than ever before. It was Alexis de Tocqueville, a famous French nobleman who came out here in the 18th century, who observed in his sociological masterpiece, Democracy in America, that the true genius of Americans lay in their ability to repair their faults. He noted the, quote, uncanny propensity of these people to recorrect a cultural trajectory. Sir Winston Churchill, the great wartime Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, half American himself, my lifelong political hero, the greatest figure of the 20th century, a man very much in the mold of our 45th president, once similarly affectionately jibed that America always does the right thing after exhausting every other option. And here I stand before you tonight as a third outsider, telling you that I identify the same boomerang spirit, the same resilience in the American psyche. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something you already know, but you need to hear again. For the last 60 years, there has been a culture war raging in this country, but only one side has been fighting it. They've done it with violence, the threat of violence, lies, and the hostile takeovers of universities. They are dedicated to nothing short of our annihilation. And in the dogged pursuit of that singular objective, they are governed only by three things: the rules of Saul Alinsky, the morals of the Chicago mob, and the money of George Soros. While this culture war has raged, we conservatives, we hardworking, everyday, regular, ordinary American men and women have been busy paying off our mortgages, growing our businesses, saving up our money to send our children off to college to get indoctrinated. And we have consistently and constantly and continually sought the high ground and elevated things like collegiality and dignity and propriety, to the point now we wake up in the morning, we almost choke on our bacon and eggs as we watch the morning television because we cannot believe what our eyes are seeing. The local high school is changing its name. The statue outside the courthouse has been there for eons, has been designated for removal. The elementary school, 2 counties away, has officially changed the school calendar to read from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Day in and day out, there is a relentless assault on American values, a relentless assault on all of the things that you and I know and love. And it is for two reasons. Number one, all of the cultural institutions that shape and generate our culture are in the hands of people that want to fundamentally transform, or in their most recent terminology, reset America. Their words, not mine. They don't love America the way that you and I love America. They don't love the things about America that you and I love about America. They want to transform America into something it has never been, something that it isn't, and quite frankly, something that it should never, ever become. Second reason is what I call the passion gap. Always hard to speak about publicly. But if we're going to win this fight, we have to be brutally candid with ourselves. So here it goes. For the last 60 years, the left in this country have wanted to destroy America more than we have wanted to protect it. For the last 60 years, the left in this country have wanted to destroy America more than we have wanted to protect it. And ultimately, what all of this boils down to is no different to a street fight. It's going to come down to who wants it the most. And until we can match them in intensity, in passion, and in strategy, we're going to continue to lose all of the things that we hold so dear. This is a fight that we did not start. But it is a fight that we have no choice but to finish. This is a fight that we did nothing to provoke or invite. But this is a fight that we have no choice but to attend. For where I stand and you sit is freedom's Colosseum. Freedom will live or freedom will perish right here on this soil. The rest of the world is too far gone. And the pages of the history books yet to be written will reflect the actions that we determined to take at this juncture. Did we invest in the next generation of Americans? Did we insist on our citizens believing in American values? Or did we continue to permit our children to be brainwashed with European values? Did we make every conceivable effort to secure our elections? Did we make every conceivable effort to win our elections? Did we knock on every door? Did we speak to every person? Did we go into our church and pull our fellow congregant out of the pews and into the voting booths? Or did we always think that there was one more election left? Did we continue to be bullied and silenced and harassed and intimidated by political correctness and cancel culture? Or did we punch the bully in the nose and relegate it right where it belongs, on the dusty bottom bookshelf of some fourth-rate library in the middle of nowhere? These are the questions whose answers will determine what happens. But I want you to have hope. And I'll tell you why. Because all of you are my hope. Because of the work that I do, I get to be in a different city almost every single day. And I see patriots like you fighting in the unlikeliest of places, like you, for our values and our culture. Believe me when I tell you, there are more of us than there are them. But they're louder than us. They're more organized than us. Let the history books record that in 2021, there was an unprecedented threat against America and liberty, and that we responded with patriotism and gallantry, that we were unintimidated by the cultural elites, undaunted by the odds, and undeterred by the scale and magnitude of our fight. This is a fight that we can win. This is a fight that we must win. This is a fight that we will win. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. God bless California. God knows that she needs it. And God bless the United States of America. Let's go out and kick some anti-American butt.
I'd like to ask you something right off the bat. What grade would you give our American children in terms of civics? And before you answer, I'm going to scoot over here, but please face the camera when you answer, because you're very polite. You're going to look at me, but everybody will see your cheek for the next little bit.
Works. Okay. All right. That's a great question. So just so you heard the question, Jane asked me what kind of grade I would give students in the United States of America in 2021 on civics. I'm here to deliver some very bad news. It would be a D. In my experience, most fifth grade students know almost nothing about the three founding documents, the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. That doesn't change much when you go to 7th grade and then 9th grade. There are incremental increases, but unfortunately, because of the war that the left have been waging for a long time, civics is either no longer being taught or it is being taught for a very brief period of time. For example, in the state of Florida, teaching the Constitution is mandated for just one day of the school year, just one day. And as all of you know, right now, Florida is about the freest place in the world. But in that state, it's just one day. Some states are better, but really, in terms of the civics education that all of you would have experienced, it's nothing like it. So I would give it a D.
D is not very pretty. You shared with me, and you alluded to it in your talk. You shared with me privately, though, when I first met you, that one of the things that struck you when you came here is that people were actually pulling for you, and you'd tell them what you were going to do, and they'd say, "Oh, that's really cool. I hope you do well. Hey, I know so-and-so. Let me help you." Nick, has that spirit followed you, and do you still see America as helpful? And also, I would like to point out that I didn't think of that as American. I thought that was just nice people. And when you said that that was an American quality, I thought that was terribly interesting. Will you speak to that?
Absolutely. Look, culture is created by people and obviously by history. And you're absolutely right. When I came to the United States of America, I was absolutely overwhelmed by the kindness, the generosity, and the support of the American people. If you go and speak to any of the very successful sports stars that emanate from the United States of America, they will tell you that often some of their greatest successes, the home crowd carried them through. This is something that a lot of sports people from other countries say that they have never experienced and they've always been envious of. Australia and European nations and the rest of the world really don't operate that way. To give you a few examples, I went to a very good private school, all boys. I topped 3 of the 4 final year subjects. My name is on the boards around that particular honor boards around that particular school. Within 18 months of finishing high school, I was elected to local government. And I, in my position, was in charge of basically whatever the school, if the school wanted to develop, if they wanted to build something else, if they wanted to get a change in car parking regulations, whatever it was, they had to seek my vote. I had a vote on it. And of course, I always supported my school. Do you know that even until today, I have never, ever once been asked to come back and speak at my school or visit my school? I went to the University of Sydney. I did undergraduate and postgraduate degrees there. The University of Sydney is home to Fisher Library, which is the largest library in the Southern Hemisphere. Every conceivable book is there, from Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf to Mao Zedong, to Joseph Stalin. These are the authors that Fisher Library houses. After my first book became a bestseller, I went back to my university and I offered to donate 3 copies of my best-selling book, 3 or 4 copies. And I was told that there was a process and that I could leave it here, but to leave an address just in case they were going to return it. And 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail with the books returned. My own university didn't want to house my book. So this is the kind of stuff that is pretty standard fare in every country but the United States. And yes, that spirit has followed me, Jane. I find the American people still to be that way, at least all of the people that I deal with. Obviously, perhaps if I was dealing with people in different places, with different principles and values, then the story might be different. But my experience has been remarkable, and that is that when my own country turned their back, Americans gave me their shoulders.
Beautiful. You have such a wonderful way with words. I'll follow that up with a specific question about Australia. There's a question from the audience that says, I've talked to some young Australians and I was shocked by how anti-gun they are. Do you have any insight into what caused that cultural shift in Australia? And second question from this person is, are there any cultural traits you miss from Australia or any you're thankful to have left behind? Marmite or Vegemite?
Okay. So in terms of the first question, and you'll have to forgive me because it's about 11 o'clock my time, so I'm getting tired. What was the first question?
The question is about
what's happening in Australia?
Yeah, the anti-gun kind of thing
guns.
in Australia.
Okay, let's deal with that one first. So when I was 11 and a half years old in March of 1996, the Australian government implemented some of the most cumbersome and strict gun laws in the world. They have continued to this day. There was never really there's never been a Second Amendment. There has never been an inherent right to self-defense. You're not allowed to own a firearm in Australia for self-defense. You need, if you are going to own a firearm, you need to prove that you need it for your livelihood. You're a rancher, you're a veterinarian, you're a sports shooter. Hunters obviously do get some kind of licenses, but you can't say, I want a gun because I want to defend myself and my family and my property. That's not allowed. There really was never the gun culture that people think, that Americans think in Australia. That just wasn't really the case. You've got to remember that, again, contrary to the international perception of Australia, Australia is the second most urbanized country in the world. 89% of Australians live in one of the 6 major cities: Sydney, Hobart, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth. And so we are not this nation of rugged individualists fighting and battling, and we're a bunch of city slickers. And as you guys know, in inner cities, even here in the United States, unless you're a gang member, unless you're a criminal, a lot of those people choose not to have weapons. They don't like guns. And so Australia has kind of always been like that. On top of that, what feeds into that is the fact that we have a very anti-American news media. So Australians are constantly hearing about what happens with school shootings. They're hearing about these different tragedies that go. These are highlighted by the Australian media in an effort to, I guess, maintain the status quo and ensure that there isn't a change in the approach of people. So Australia is never getting its guns back. It doesn't want its guns back. The people in Australia, guns are seen as a matter of public safety as opposed to freedom. That's the fundamental difference between America and Australia when it comes to guns. In terms of, are there any cultural values that I miss, or was it values or items?
Values.
Values. So I'll just jump to the third one. I don't really miss Vegemite or Marmite. Occasionally Vegemite, not bad, but not really. I prefer Nutella, as you can see. But in terms of the cultural values, look, the only thing that I would say is that conformity often breeds a discipline. And as someone that goes into American schools a lot and has a lot to do with young Americans, I am really often struck by their lack of discipline. There doesn't seem to be a regard for reputation because it's such an individualist society here in the United States. I don't think that young kids are raised the way that I was, that you are a representation of your mother and father. You're a representation of your family. You're not just you. And like I say, it's a two-edged sword because it's the individualism of America that makes America so unique and exceptional and special. But I think when it comes now to the young people of this country today, I think that a lot of that old school discipline and that tightness in raising a child, unfortunately, that just doesn't exist here. And yes, colleges are terrible all around the world. They're a hotbed of leftist activity everywhere. That's standard, and that's been like that for a long time. But the matter is particularly pronounced here because, again, students are often choosing a university or a college that's a really long way away from their family, and they're going there, and mum and dad are not ringing them up every day to ask them what they're learning, what are they doing, who are they meeting, who are they hanging out with. That kind of what they call helicopter parenting just doesn't happen here. And unfortunately, that's why American students are such an easy, I mean, an American student goes to a college 600, 1,000 miles away, and they are essentially a naked canvas for a professor to paint. And that is a very, very dangerous thing, and we're seeing the effects of that. And I can only go based on my own personal, but I can tell you that there was a nightly interrogation at the dinner table when I returned home from university about who I was, where I went, what I did, what I was learning, who I was speaking, where are your textbooks. And if that stuff's not happening, you can't really expect that your child is not going to fall into the hands of someone that has got bad intentions. Yes.
Well, Nick, I want you to know that it wasn't very long ago, half a generation ago, where our value of individualism did not get in the way of worrying about our character. I will tell you that, share with you all that my husband was cautioned when he went out the door on Friday nights to do not bring shame upon this family. And I think he did a
Joe gets it.
Yeah, pretty good job. Okay, I want to ask, there are a couple questions from the audience specifically about schools and what's happening with FLAG. So
Sure.
let me address that couple together. Are Catholic K through 12 schools open to FLAG, and are you affiliated in any way with Barney Charter Schools, which is affiliated with Hillsdale College?
Okay, good questions. So the first thing to tell you is what was the first question? Catholic schools. Catholic schools. Okay. So Catholic schools. We go into Catholic schools, private schools, charter schools, public schools. We go into all of them. When I first started FLAG, my mission was if I could change one student's heart and mind, that was a successful day. So we certainly are in all of the arenas in K-12 education. We do a little bit of work with Hillsdale. We do a little bit of work with the charter schools that they are setting up. We have been focused lately because of the pandemic and everything else. A lot of our stuff has gone online, and a lot of our stuff it's been really the distribution of resources, because of course it was always hard to get into schools, but now that they've got the COVID excuse to simply hide behind, it's become even more difficult. So, but yes, we do go into Catholic schools, we do go into charter schools, we do go into public schools, we do go into private schools. Public schools need it the most, and that's why our efforts until now have been predominantly towards that.
Nick, here's a direct question. Who do you think is running this country?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I wish it weren't the case, but I do believe that the United States of America now is in a very difficult place. Very difficult place. We are losing American prestige. American power is being given away in a fire sale. The values of the people that are running the show do not align with traditional American values. And the left, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, these are evil people. AOC, these are evil people. These are awful people. These are divisive people. These are people that, I don't have any time for. And I know that none of you do either. But unfortunately, right now, as you can see by the fact that when we go to the gas station, you guys are paying about $7 a gallon right about now, $5, well, whatever. So everything has gone up. We are poorer, weaker, less secure. Everything that we could have predicted was going to happen with these kind of people has happened. And it's very, very sad. Last one, Jane.
Oh, last one. Boy, I'm going to have to pick
I'm
here.
sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you, when you're signing books, you might ask Nick a question then about, there's some questions about Australia and in terms, and then you can only answer. But I guess what I'd like to do, if you have energy for one more, Nick, is to really ask you what we ask all our speakers, and that is what we can do. And one of our guests put it well, the enemy is so organized with a long-term plan. What actions can we each take that will have the greatest impact in stopping their assault and take back our country?
Every single one of us has got a role to play. Every single one of us can do something or offer something. For some of us, it's money. For some of us, it's a talent. For some of us, it's time. For some of us, it's volunteering. Whatever it is, all of us in this very complex American tapestry have got a role to play in the rescue of America. Grandparents sitting around with grandchildren, parents sitting around with children. The story of America must continue to be told. And that's something that they can't stop us doing. They can't stop us speaking to our relatives, speaking to our friends, speaking to our neighbors, speaking to anybody that will listen. And on top of that, due to American ingenuity, we now have so many different platforms with which to do it. Right now, all of us have got a megaphone, courtesy of American innovation. And it's our obligation to use it. Silence in a moment like this is not golden. It's yellow. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to speak up, to put up, and to fight. Because if we don't, it's going to be all over. So I would encourage all of you, whether it's a non-profit that does conservative work, whether it's a particular candidate who you want to support, whether it is going online and writing articles and posting them up on your own website or on your own social media post, whatever it is, get out there and fight. Now is not the time. There's never been a time to fight for America more than there is right now. Never, ever. So this is it. Get out there and do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping us close the passion gap. You are an American treasure. We really appreciate it.